Japan's advanced robot technology is visible to the outside world. It has the third largest economy in the world. An amazing culture. And almost no crime. Here is a healthy population. And companies that are known all over the world. This is the dark side of Japan. The Japanese organized crime group known as the Yakuza has been around for over 300 years. The origins of the group can be attributed to the year 1612, when its members began to draw attention to the local authorities with their unusual behavior, appearance and hairstyles. Yakuza adopt the customs of the samurai, and often decorate their bodies with elaborate tattoos. They engage in extortion, blackmail, smuggling, prostitution, drug trafficking and other activities. The term Yakuza, meaning good for nothing, is believed to come from a useless hand in a Japanese card game related to blackjack or baccarat. It is difficult to determine the exact origins of the Yakuza, but they are said to have originated from groups of ronin, masterless samurai, who became bandits. According to police estimates, gang membership peaked at 184,000 in the early 1960s, but by the beginning of the 21st century, their numbers had fallen to about 80,000, split about equally between affiliates and permanent members. Yakuza began to form families in the 1700s, when members banded together for mutual protection. They took over market and fair stalls and gained a reputation for poor quality products and dishonest sales tactics. Members of the group began to engage in politics, supporting certain elected officials and politicians. They cooperated with the government to get official sanction, or at least some freedom from the government. The structure of the Yakuza resembles a family, very similar to the Italian mafia. Any Yakuza group or individual is called the leader Oyabun, literally boss or parental status, and the followers Koban, literally protege, disciples or subsidiary status. Right-wing ultranationalist ideology is usually accompanied by strict hierarchy and discipline. A member who violates the Yakuza code is required to perform penance, which was once achieved when a Koban cut off his little finger with a sword and presented it to his Oyabun. However, this practice gradually disappeared. Koban customarily take a blood oath of loyalty. Many people have intricate tattoos with personal meaning. Clan member tattoos are often identical. These tattoos are not intended for public display. Not a single Yakuza, if you look closely, has tattoos on their necks or arms. This is not accidental, because each Yakuza tattoo is viewed by the clan as a highly individualized and structured component. Its wearers are not interested in being noticed by everyone. One of the methods which the Yakuza uses to attract recruits, there is a tattoo. Young children aged 17 to 16 who are very impressionable, the lost youth of Japan, roaming the streets, will obviously be very fascinated by the Yakuza lifestyle. If you have visible tattoos, you will not be allowed in some areas, including gyms, onsen, baths, swimming pools and many ryokans, Japanese hotels. Although tattooing was an art form and a means of self-expression during Japan's hunting and gathering eras, tattooing gradually faded from popular culture. And things didn't take a strange turn until the Edo period. Around this time, tattoos began to be used to identify criminals. The location and design of tattoos was determined by the crimes committed by the person. The prostitutes of that time had several clients from different walks of life, and they showed their devotion to their clients through romantic tattoos. The Fukushima disaster occurred at Fukushima Daiichi in 2011. The second largest nuclear disaster occurred here. TEPCO officials said backup generators at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant were affected by tsunami waves from the main shock of the March 11, 2011, earthquake in Japan. The 3 operating reactors were effectively shut down. But in the first days after the accident, cooling systems in each of them failed due to power outages. Reactors 1, 2, and 3 experienced overheating and partial melting of fuel rods, due to increased residual heat in each reactor core, which sometimes led to radiation leaks. In August 2023, Japan will begin dumping huge quantities of purified radioactive water into the Pacific Ocean from the tsunami-ravaged Fukushima nuclear power plant. Fishermen's organizations said they were still concerned that the damage to their reputation would destroy their ability to earn a living. According to TEPCO, the water will have 190 becquerels of tritium per liter, below the 10,000 becquerels per liter recommended by the World Health Organization for drinking water. A becquerel is a radioactive unit. Japan recognized the release of water as safe. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, the UN's nuclear watchdog, approved the proposal in July, saying it met international standards and that its impact on human health and the environment would be negligible. What is the first thing that comes to mind when someone says the word cafe? Most people can imagine a quiet store where they would go to work, relax, have a drink or chat with friends. However, this is not the case in Japan. Japan has a much wider variety of cafes. Many of them are thematic, which gives them the name themed cafes. This provides a unique and entertaining atmosphere that is very different from the typical traditional cafe. In Japan, themed cafes related to the otaku subculture are quite popular. However, this sector is not without its downside. One of the several duties that girls like Keiko have when working as maids is to stand outside trying to attract customers. They do this for hours on end, even in the rain, even in the snow, regardless of the weather. In some situations, they may not even be allowed to eat or go to the toilet. In addition, some maids have panic attacks and also suffer from stress. An attack on maid cafe employees during working hours is not excluded. It is also forbidden to gain weight, and you need to keep your figure as slim as possible. There are even special forums where maids are discussed. Although they are all part of the maid cafe chain, they operate separately. All of these are controlled by every big boss and every outstanding boss. A specialist reports to one person who has authority over all others. Actually, Jaffmeister is a central figure for all locals cafe chains for maids. Any cafe for maids is a symbol of authority and power that a young master can possess. Each maid cafe affects the area it covers. Some people are choosing to leave their homes, careers, and families in the middle of the night to start a second life, often without even looking, all over the world, from the US to Germany to the UK. These people are usually called Johatsu in Japan. The phrase, which translates from Japanese as evaporation, also describes people who deliberately disappear from sight while maintaining a vague identity, often for years or even decades. There are companies in Japan that can help those who want to go nowhere. For years, mobile photographers in Japan have faced difficulties. You see, all cell phones in Japan come with an annoying shutter sound that gets more and more annoying with each photo taken. You might ask, why not turn it off? For privacy reasons, the shutter sound cannot be turned off in Japan. We will remind you that the camera phone comes from Japan. And unfortunately, it's also home to freaks who take pictures on their phones, the photos they shouldn't take, for example, under a woman's skirt. So, to make the annoying shutter sound standard and inevitable on all phones, Japanese mobile operators have partnered with mobile phone manufacturers. This made voyeuristic filming much more difficult. Of course, making such heinous acts more difficult is a good thing. Apple has even agreed to configure its phones shipped to Japan and Korea so that the shutter sound cannot be muted, despite Apple's well-known practice of selling identical products. in many regions around the world. So even though a Japanese iPhone and a US iPhone may look identical, the Japanese phone will have the required shutter sound while the US phone will not. In Japan, permanent work is called shushin koyo. Shushin koyo is a practice whereby an employee joins a firm immediately after graduation and remains there until reaching retirement age. For most of the last century, this technique was common in Japan, and provided many Japanese people with stable work. After 1 year of service, employees receive an advance on top of the established basic income. A person transferring to another company may find that their new employer pays less than other workers in the same age group because they start at the bottom of the pay scale. This policy applies to lifetime employment because of the constraints it imposes on both employer and employee. Lifetime employment is not sustainable. The employee relies excessively on the success of the company. Between 1993 and 2004, when the full effects of the economic bubble burst, many university graduates experienced what analysts call an ice age of employment. As a result, many young people have suffered serious consequences, losing career prospects and being forced to choose precarious contract or dispatch work instead. As a result, many workers were affected, creating social problems that the government now realized needed to be addressed. The early years of this century created unprecedented difficulties for young people looking for work in Japan. Of all countries in the world, Japan has the largest proportion of elderly people. In Japan, almost 10% of the population is 80 years or older. Japan consistently has the oldest population in the world, with significantly more people aged 65 and over than Italy, the next oldest country. According to the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs 2023 report, only 35% of businesses prefer workers over 55. Adolescents and young adults experiencing hikikomori, severe social isolation, often describe themselves as living in their parents' homes, as recluses, unable to work or attend school for months or years. A study was conducted to examine the evidence supporting the theory that hikikomori is a newly recognized mental illness. Information on social isolation and hikikomori, including case finding, epidemiology and diagnosis studies, was collected through manual and electronic literature searches. There are many reasons for closed-mindedness, from bullying at school and at the workplace before an illness or traumatic event. About 1.5 million people in Japan were recluses, meaning they spent at least 6 months alone in their homes, according to a government study last November. Friends, I hope you enjoyed my video about the dark side of Japan. If you want to know more interesting facts and travel stories, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, press the bell to get notified about new videos. Which country you want to see in the next video, please let us know in the comments section. Thank you for your attention, and see you again on my channel.